Sound. Hello and Boomer Tech. Okay, sorry about that. Just trying to do the whole thing. Got it. No longer muted, but there we are. It's the Gold Goats and Guns Hour. I am Tom Luongo. It is Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. Yeah, it's been that kind of day. I haven't even made my coffee cup today. Wow. All right, we're gonna do that. This is gonna be disgusting. All right, we'll do it. Hi everyone. Just so you know, for those of you who are new to this, we're gonna be sweeping over to Odyssey in about 15-20 minutes or so, and then we'll figure it out from there. Still not getting any response from the people over at Odyssey as to why I'm now down to less than a 20th or a 25th of a token per view over at Odyssey, but it is what it is. We'll continue to play this game until I find something else, find some other format to run with. So hope everybody is well. Had elf stroganoff for dinner tonight, says El Vaquero, because he had a successful elk hunt last week, which, you know, I get personal emails from El Vaquero every time he kills some poor defenseless animal that's tasty and delicious. So good for you, dude. You're my hero. All right. So yeah, we're going to talk about a number of things today. I'm going to, I wrote an article for the patrons this morning on what's going on in Turkey. We're going to talk about that. Not necessarily here. We're going to probably talk about that over on Odyssey. But what I'm really going to talk about, and I'm not really even allowed to talk about here on YouTube, and I'd rather not talk about, is the really disturbing things that are coming out about the vaccines. And, you know, I really would rather not believe that these people are that freaking evil, but that's the problem. They are. And they always have been this evil. And now they're doing their level best to just, you know, I don't know, kill everybody. It's just pathetic. So we're going to talk about that when we get over to Odyssey in about, you know, like I said, in about 10-15 minutes or so. I'm going to filibuster here for a little bit just to make sure that everybody who wants to be in the stream can get into the stream. I really should tweet this out, don't you think? That might actually not be a bad idea. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that really soon? Hey, let's try that again. Trying to get Odyssey, trying to get the, yeah, there we go. Trying to get the stream set up on Odyssey so that we can do a quick changeover when we go to the different platform. Been an interesting week. Everything that I said about, let's talk about like what's going on in the markets before we do anything else. Hold on. Well, I'm gonna do this. You guys are just gonna have to sit here and watch me filibuster for a second while I try and figure out. Never mind. I don't know. Somebody tweet the stream out for me, will you please? Thank you, and link me on it, and then I'll tweet it out from there. Let's just do it that way. Easier if I do that. So when last week the Federal Reserve came out and raised interest rates, right? Or came out and started to raise interest rates, but said they're going to, and said also that they're going to up the rate of tapering, and that very much confirms everything that I've been saying for going on 6 months now, that the Fed has gotten off the Great Reset bandwagon, and that we're now dealing with a Davos crowd that is in serious trouble trying to figure out how best to continue to push their agenda forward as much as possible, while dealing with the complete breakdown of their attempt to take over the United States. And it's a very strange thing, right? But it's a weird feeling being right, because we've been doing this, for some of you have been with me now since 2016. I've been doing this for 5 years now. I've been, you know, hanging out with some of you. I used to talk into my phone. I was like this big, you know, it was all head. It was all max. It was all, you know, kind of twitchy max headroom, and me hammering people with my little stylus. And go, no, you're gone. And dealing with that stuff, and while I rage at, you know, trolls on Periscope, that'll take you back. And over the years, it's been interesting being both right and wrong, right? I mean, and no one's ever right about everything, and you can't possibly be right about everything. But as long as you get the big stuff right when you're in the position that I'm in, you tend, that's the best you can hope for. Can you be right 60-70% of the time? Even that percentage for a lot of political analysts is actually quite high. So to have to get the situation with the Fed, Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Democrats, the multi-headed hydra that is Davos, the three-faction coalition of the aggrieved that is the Democratic Party, to get all of that right, and then have it all come together in like one kind of beautiful moment, while everybody else is trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And then it's like all of a sudden, boom, everything is just laying out almost exactly the way you would expect it to. And still, there are things that you can't keep up with on a day-to-day basis. And I don't know if it's gratifying or if it's horrifying. I guess it's a little bit of both, right? If you're looking at it from my perspective. And I know that all of you follow me in the hopes that I'm going to give you some insight as to what's going to come next. And I know nobody here expects me to be right 100% of the time. Mostly what we're trying to do here is, as a group, kind of suss out what's happening. And I can tell you that as this has gone along, the community that we've built over, on Patreon and then on the private Slack server that I run for my patrons, or that honestly my patrons just run, and I just kind of try to hold the tiger by the tail and try and keep it, try and keep everybody from killing each other. Watching that evolve and grow has made me a better analyst, and made this that much more effective. I mean, really, I think that's really what we're dealing with here, is that it's really that effective. So it's really gratifying. And I also know that at a certain point, we're all trying to work it out. As Stoyanovich says, he just likes helping to, help reason things out. I'm in the same boat. I like doing that as well. And I've always been a part of some kind of community. I used to be one of the members of the community. Or Turd Ferguson site, or over on Yahoo, or over on Zero Hedge, or wherever I was, hanging out, trying to figure this stuff out. So it's really fascinating to see how that stuff evolves. And you can't do this on your own. You can't do it in a vacuum. You have to, in my case, I have an incredibly talented partner, Dexter White, who's helped me for years, was, behind the scenes assisting in the process. We just published a podcast this afternoon with another friend of his, Sam Texas, on situations in the data center and how it relates to crypto. I think it's a very, very interesting podcast, one in which I learned a lot, and I always like that, right? I always love that kind of thing. So I want you to think about, the breadth of this stuff. And, as we go along here, it's just going to I think it only gets better from here, because the community is now reaching a kind of critical mass that can only continue to propagate, and only it can be centered around me, but it's not really just me anymore. And I like to, I get to be the figurehead of what really is a kind of collective brain sussing out what's happening here. And it proves a point that I've been making for years, which is that while these guys at Davos think they may be the smartest people in the room, they're not smarter than the room. And they're certainly not smarter than this room. And I think that's the thing that we all have to kind of step back and realize, that we're all incredibly talented in our own way and all have a unique perspective on this stuff. And we all bring a little bit to the table here and there. Because I don't have the bandwidth to watch and digest everything that bears on what I talk about. And so it's just really funny about it, how this all plays itself out. So we did an Italian Caesar picture for the Slack. Am I going to bring back the hat in 2022? No, I'm not. The hat's gone. It's dead. I left it out on my porch and it molded all summer. I actually wound up throwing it away. And I don't plan on buying a new one. I'm going to grow up now and just embrace the baldness, and we'll just leave it at that. I will say though that, on Slack, like there are two emojis that are mine. There's the goat and there's the hat, and I give them out, to great posts and they're mine. None of you should use the goat or the hat, right? Because they're mine for me to give out to people. Of course, the goat means it's an incredibly based fucking remark. It's just fantastic. So I love what you guys are doing. I love the feedback that happens on each of the Patreon posts that happen on a day-to-day basis. So for those of you who watch, who aren't, regulars, if you just read the blog or you just do the live stream, you just listen to the podcast, you're not really getting all of it, because so much of what I do now is I give to the patrons first, and then I have only so much bandwidth left over to write something public at the end of the week, or repackage a post from the patron for the patrons and put it out publicly. What I do publicly now is a tenth of what I actually produce and what I actually, and what I actually consider and deal with on a day-to-day basis. So just so you guys know. All right. So, yeah, and just to remind everybody, I am now doing Halsey's Money Monday show at Monday nights at 10 o'clock, and that's always fun. I like doing a show where I get to riff off of somebody else. It's like doing a podcast with Dexter. The podcast is always better when it's two people. I think a show like this is always better when it's two people. I just don't have the bandwidth to be able to set up a two-shot, or to set up that kind of thing with the live stream, or doing like either a Google Hangout or Zoom call or whatever. So maybe that'll change. We'll see what happens. Maybe Elon Musk will finally get his shit together, and Starlink will start beaming. Will now allow for the movement of microwaves back and forth between my house and a satellite, and bounce it up, and we can actually get them properly. All right. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to move over to Odysee. I think let's see if the thing is ready. It is. So now that the link is there, here's the link to the upcoming stream. It's right there. So what I want to talk about when I get over there, we're going to talk about is we got the whole Joe Biden thing, coming out today and telling us how terrible Omicron is, and how we all have to, pitch in and stop the spread of the common cold. I'm like, yeah, really? We're going to, and we got to get vaccinated now against the fucking common cold? No. I want to also talk about some of the things that Martin Armstrong wrote a great blog post this morning about the situation. And I got to give Martin a lot of credit for putting what he put out this morning. I thought it was really quite brave, but I'm sure that Martin at this point is not worried about being canceled, because he's not a social media thing. He's not really a thing on social media, so it really doesn't matter. Holy shit, Greg Rockenberger. Apparently Elon Musk just did an interview with the Babylon Bee. That ought to be fun. I want also, okay, so speaking of Elon Musk and speaking of Jack Dorsey, I know that those guys have been going back and forth. I want you guys to really be careful about what's going on with Jack Dorsey. I am not convinced that Dorsey isn't playing, kind of a double agent role here. Or maybe we'll talk about that when we get over to Odysee. So I don't know. But we've got a lot to talk about. We've got Turkey to talk about. We've got Russia and Ukraine and all of that stuff to talk about. NATO. The Russians just put their draft proposal together of a new security architecture for Europe. And I want to go one step further and say that it's very clear that the Russians are fucking done, and everything that Putin put out in the last 24 to 48 hours should be very disturbing for anybody who thinks that they're going to be able to intimidate the Russians, because that's just not going to be a thing. Amin Chakak. I don't know how you say that. Chakak. I don't believe that Dorsey's. I'm willing to believe that Dorsey's a Bitcoin maxi, but at the same time, I'm also not convinced that Dorsey isn't playing a game here. Okay, that he's not playing a game. I love the fact that he and Elon Musk are now coming out against Web 3.0, which is all over the World Economic Forum. They're coming out and they're being the guys to kind of lead the charge against what's coming with what the World Economic Forum is putting forth. I'm a little worried about, of course, what we're seeing in the long run about how they're pushing Ethereum, and they're pushing Ripple, and they're pushing a lot of these crypto projects that are very much centralization, coins that are centralized, or tokens, or whatever you want to call them, whatever the fuck Ethereum is at this point. It's very, very scary to me. So I did not watch Alex and Alex's talk about Erdogan and Turkey today. I have a much different take, and we'll talk about that. I'm sure it's a much different take. And those guys being Greek, I'm sure I know part of what they're talking about here, because they don't like Erdogan and all. I don't like Erdogan, but you got to realize that Erdogan is fighting for his life, and I really do believe that. So I think Stoyanovich and I have been going back and forth today, talking about some of the nuances of what I talked about in my post for my patrons this morning, which eventually I'll probably throw most of that up into the public communication space. So why don't we stop talking around this stuff and get into it? So I'm going to bolt, and that's the end of the preview for the evening. And we'll say this on my way out the door, for those of you who aren't going to follow me over at Odyssey, everything that I've said about how the market's reacting to the Federal Reserve raising rates is coming true. So if you want more color on that, you're going to have to go follow me over on Odyssey. Right, so there we go. Ready? And one more time, there's the link. We'll see you guys over there in a couple of minutes. So you guys be well. You take care. We'll talk soon. Talking about 5 minutes over on Odyssey.